ever wonder what it's really like to work at one of those big tech companies, the ones that everyone dreams of working for.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into Apple Pay.
Ooh, juicy.
Yeah, and we've got this really interesting insider account from a software engineer who worked there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they spill all the tea, the good, the bad, and the just plain ugly.
I'm always fascinated to get those firsthand perspectives, especially from a company like Apple, with a reputation for being so secretive.
I know, right? And this engineer does not hold back.
Okay, so what's the scoop? What do they have to say?
Well, they start off by talking about the perks, like the pay is good, the benefits are solid.
Makes sense.
Even get those sweet Apple discounts, like who doesn't love that?
Yeah, those are definitely nice perks, for
Yeah.
sure.
But then things take a bit of a turn.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's like they set you up with all the good stuff and then they're like, but wait, there's more.
Okay, now you've got me curious. What's the catch?
So get this, the engineer starts talking about their archaic engineering practices. They actually say that.
Archaic engineering.
Yeah, and they're talking about things like having manual release cycles every 3 weeks for cloud services.
Wow, in 2024.
I know, right? It's like they're stuck in the Stone Age or something.
That is surprising to hear, especially for a company like Apple that's known for being at the forefront of technology.
Right.
So what does archaic engineering even look like in practice?
Well, the engineer specifically mentions something called inverted test pyramids
Okay,
and a resistance to adopting something called CI/CD. Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah. CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery. Basically, it's a more modern approach to software development. It prioritizes automation and frequent testing to streamline the process.
So instead of manually checking for errors every few weeks,
Right.
they could be using automated systems to catch those issues way earlier.
Exactly, yeah. CI/CD, it allows for much faster development cycles, quicker bug fixes, and ultimately, it leads to a more reliable product. So the fact that these practices are allegedly missing in certain teams at Apple Pay is, well, it's definitely interesting to say the least.
Yeah, it's like they're choosing to build a house of cards one card at a time when they've got a whole stack of bricks and some perfectly good mortar right there.
That's a pretty great analogy.
Yeah.
But it does highlight the potential inefficiencies the engineer is talking about.
It's not just about being behind the times. This could be about them compromising the speed and agility they need to thrive in that super competitive world of digital payments.
Absolutely.
And remember, this isn't just some random person complaining online.
Right.
This engineer, they were working on a system that millions of people use every single day.
That's true. Their perspective carries some weight.
If they're saying things are outdated, well, it makes you wonder what's really going on behind the scenes at Apple Pay.
It does raise some questions about how these practices, if true, might be impacting Apple Pay's competitiveness, especially in that fast-paced world of digital payments where companies are constantly innovating and trying to outdo each other.
And it's not just about the tech.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah, this engineer, they don't hold back. They go on to describe the workplace culture at Apple Pay. And, well, let's just say it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Okay, so what are we talking about here?
Think derogatory remarks, blatant favoritism, even a culture of fear. They use those exact words.
Wow, those are some pretty strong accusations.
Right. And when they talk about a culture of fear, that can be really toxic.
Oh, absolutely. When people are afraid to speak up, to share their ideas, to point out problems, it can really stifle creativity and innovation.
Exactly. And who's going to want to take risks or challenge the status quo when they're worried about, getting penalized for it?
Right. And it sounds like this engineer is suggesting that this fear is kind of baked into the company's structure.
Yeah, it's not just a few bad apples, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
They're saying it's systemic.
It's ingrained in the culture.
And then they bring up the lack of transparency, especially around things like, pay and promotions.
Which makes sense, right? If you've got a culture of fear, you're probably not going to have a lot of open communication about those kinds of things.
Exactly. It's like, don't rock the boat or you'll miss out.
And that lack of transparency can be really damaging.
Oh, yeah.
It creates this environment of distrust and uncertainty. People are left wondering where they stand, how decisions are being made, if their contributions are even valued.
It's like being in the dark.
Right. And if you add those allegations of blatant favoritism on top of that,
Oh, yeah, they talk about that too.
well, that just compounds the problem, because if opportunities for advancement are based on who you know instead of what you contribute, it breeds resentment, it creates inequity, And that's not a recipe for a happier, productive workplace.
No, not at all. And speaking of inequity, this engineer also brings up some specific challenges faced by women at Apple Pay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, to be honest.
What do they say?
Well, they actually advise women to, really think twice before joining the company.
Wow.
Uh,
That's concerning.
and, whether this is a widespread issue or just this one person's experience, it's still something to take seriously.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that we can't just accept a company's public image at face value.
Right, there are always going to be those layers, those nuances that we don't see from the outside.
Exactly. And sometimes what's happening behind closed doors doesn't always match the shiny facade.
Yeah, a good reminder that every company, no matter how big or successful, has its issues.
Absolutely. And it's up to us to dig a little deeper, to
Yeah.
ask those tough questions, and to really think critically about the companies we support and the workplaces we choose to be a part of.
It makes you realize, we often only get that surface level view of these tech giants.
It's true, we see the polished marketing, the sleek product launches, but we don't always get a glimpse into the inner workings, the actual employee experiences that shape those companies.
Right, exactly. And hearing these firsthand accounts, it can be kind of eye-opening.
Definitely. It reminds us that there are always multiple sides to every story.
And what really got me was at the end of this whole review,
Yeah.
this engineer, they actually have this call to action.
Oh, really? Like what?
They say, and I quote, "Join a trade union and share your workplace experiences with your peers."
Wow. That's a pretty bold statement, especially for the tech industry, which historically hasn't really been known for its strong union presence.
I know, right? It's like they're saying, look, we've got to stick together. We're stronger as a collective.
Absolutely. There's power in numbers, right? When workers come together, share their experiences, advocate for better conditions, that's when you can actually start to see some real change happen.
It makes you think, what could be possible if more tech workers felt empowered to do that,
Hmm.
To organize, to speak up, to demand better?
It's a question that's becoming more and more relevant, especially as the tech industry faces those growing pains around workplace culture, fair compensation, and employee rights.
It's like we always think of tech as this world of individual genius, those lone hackers changing the world from their basement.
Right.
But this engineer's story, it reminds us that it's not always about the individual.
Exactly. It's a collaborative effort.
It's about workers supporting each other, advocating for each other, building a better future together.
Absolutely. And it highlights the fact that technology, at its core, it's a human endeavor driven by people with real lives, real struggles, real hopes for the future.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts for our listeners? What should they take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we should always be willing to look beyond the surface. Question those assumptions, especially when it comes to these big companies.
Right. Just because a company has a cool logo and sells a product we love.
Exactly. It doesn't make them immune to the same workplace challenges that have existed for decades.
And that it's important to listen to those voices, the ones that aren't always heard, the ones speaking out about these issues.
Absolutely, because those voices, they matter. They have the power to spark conversations, to drive change, and to create more equitable and fulfilling workplaces for everyone.
It's been pretty thought-provoking, unpacking all of this with you today.
Yeah, definitely.
It's clear that even in a field as fast-paced and ever-changing as tech, those fundamental needs, they remain the same. A healthy work environment, respect, fairness, and the ability to have your voice heard.
Let me agree more.
And, for our listeners out there, the next time you're using Apple Pay or really any tech product, take a moment to think about the people behind it. The ones who built it, the ones who coded it, the ones who shipped it.
Because there's always a human story behind those products.
Absolutely, and their experiences matter. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this engineer's experience? Have you ever worked for a company that didn't quite live up to its public image? Share your thoughts with us on social media. Use the hashtag #TheDeepDive. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deeper.